The Hobbit Desolation of Smaug has finally released, and fans of Tolkien's universe and Peter Jackson's in some aspects get to return to the place they love, Middle-earth. But does the Hobbit DS live up to the songs and stories of old? Find out in the review of Hobbit Desolation of Smaug.
Truly, the tales and songs fall utterly short of your enormity, O Smaug, the stupendous.
So we're here in the second of the 3 Hobbit movies, Desolation of Smaug. The one beforehand was Unexpected Journey, and the one afterwards, the one after this one, is going to be There and Back Again. So, Unexpected Journey, Desolation of Smaug, and There and Back Again. Now, a lot of people at the start thought that Peter Jackson was being a bit of a kind of cash cow, being a bit of a money grab basically, by making such a short book into such a kind of weird adaptation, because like the book's pretty simple, but he's added a lot of stuff from the other books, like the Ciparian. He's added stuff from other stuff that he's made up, and it's bulked up to feel a lot more like Lord of the Rings. Without the things that Peter added, it would feel much different to Lord of the Rings, and I actually think that if we did make it into 1 or even 2 movies, there would be more upset than it already is, because it would be more childish if he hadn't added all these things. These things are to make the transition easier, so like the necromancer, certain aspects of like the characters that have been added, certain stuff like scenes that wouldn't have been in the book, stuff like that has been added to make the kind of transformation from Lord of the Rings to Hobbit much different. And for the most part, it is for the best. His changes don't necessarily make the Hobbit better, his changes don't make the film better than the book, but his changes are good changes more than bad changes, if that makes sense. So the way that we're going to do this review, we barely ever do reviews of games or movies, but I thought we'd do one for this because it's like fresh in my mind, and The Hobbit is something that I like, and I actually reviewed the first Hobbit movie, so I thought it would only be good, it would be proper, if we reviewed the second one. So the way we're going to do this is a weird format, I don't even know if it's going to work, but we'll do the good, the bad, and then we'll do the ugly. Because why not? I don't know what the ugly is going to be, but we'll do the good at the start. So good things that have been added is that there's more variation between character scenes. Like for a lot of it, it was Bilbo by himself. I think for the most part, in Unexpected Journey, it was Bilbo by himself. He had his scenes because he was the main character. But in this one, different characters have different scenes. So think along the lines of Lord of the Rings, where you had Merry and Pippin had their own scenes. They had a separate story, or at least separate adventure. So there's Merry and Pippin, and there was Frodo, and then there was Legolas, Aragorn, and Gimli. So there's like 3 different sets of characters with their own scenes, you know what I mean? Think along the lines of Game of Thrones. Not to such an extent, like this doesn't have as many characters, but like Tyrion has his own scenes, Cersei has her own scenes. There's not one outlying kind of main character. And for the most part, this feels like that. Bilbo isn't at the forefront. He doesn't have as many scenes, or at least it doesn't feel like he has as many scenes as Legolas, for example. And Legolas has a lot of scenes. Who else has a lot of scenes? Gandalf has a lot of scenes, like where they all have separate adventures. I'm not going to say how their adventures separate. I'm not going to say if they entwine at any point. But Bilbo, Legolas, and Gandalf, they all have their own scenes, and it feels much more varied because people, believe it or not, some people don't like Bilbo. Just let that sink in for a bit. Some people prefer Legolas. Some people prefer Gandalf. And I think that it kind of caters to a few more people, and it certainly makes it more fresh. And yeah, I think it's just better in general to have more characters and to see what different people are doing throughout the thing. But no, it's a good thing, and I think that the more characters, the merrier. Obviously, if all 13 dwarves got their own scenes, it would be a bit weird. Like they all had their own kind of inner monologues and stuff. It would be a bit fucked up. But like as it stands, with the separate kind of situations, separate adventures, it seems like a good idea for the most part. Another good thing is that the kind of light-hearted comedy that's used to make this feel a bit more childlike, and to be honest, it is more childlike. Like Lord of the Rings wasn't necessarily for adults specifically, but it certainly had less humour. It had Legolas and Gimli, they were the main kind of points of humour because they would always like jest with each other, they'd always like make fun of each other. But with this one, there's a lot more humour coming from the dwarves in general. Like there's slapstick humour. Like there's a scene, this isn't a spoiler by the way, there's no spoilers in this review, but there's a scene where Bomber's in a barrel and his arms go out like that, like like through the barrel and he starts spinning around like a ballerina, and that shouldn't have made me laugh, and I feel guilty that it did because it's just the stupidest thing in the world. But him in a barrel, like hitting people with an axe, not knowing where he's going, was just the best. It was the best thing in the movie. Like, oh, it was amazing. it was amazing just seeing him in the barrel just spinning around. Bomber is amazing. Bomber, 10 out of 10. He's the best character. He doesn't really say much. I don't think I've ever heard Bomber speak in the movie, but he's the best still. Team Bomber. But yeah, this like the kind of humour felt kind of less forced in a way. Like if you saw the last movie, and I assume you did, but like there was a bit where they were fighting they were fighting the Goblin King, and there was a bit where they fell down, and then the Goblin King fell on top of them, and that would just feel like out of place. Like why the fuck is that scene there? But the barrel one in this felt a bit more kind of woven into it, and it felt more situational. It felt like it fit in a bit more than the other ones did in The Unexpected Journey. So I think that was a very good kind of way of making it more kind of child friendly, without dumbing it down and making it seem like it is just for children. Like the humour was slapstick. You could tell the children would understand it, but you could still laugh at it and not find it like a bit naff, to be honest. The smuggler from Lake Town, or the smuggler included in the Lake Town kind of part of the story, was good. I'm trying to be vague with his kind of character synopsis. I'm trying to be vague with how I describe him, but the smuggler, the Lake Town smuggler, is a very good character. Thranduil was an amazing character. The Elf King was an elegant fucking bastard. Like, he's made to be hated, but you have to just love him. He's amazing. Even when he's like talking to the dwarves, trying to put them off their quest, you can just say,
I offer you my help.
How do we know he won't betray us? We don't.
You're good. You're alright person. He's probably a bastard, but you're a good actor. I don't know who plays him, but whatever. 10 points to Gryffindor. Amazingness. The cinematography was great as always. Like when you saw them going from place to place, there was all that amazing kind of scenery that you'd come to know and love from Peter's work. I mean, even outside of Lord of the Rings, even in stuff like King Kong, the kind of scenery in the world was amazing, and this is no different. The scenery is astounding. Maybe it was less jaw-dropping than Lord of the Rings, but it was still good for a movie. Do you know what I mean? Like, Lord of the Rings, it's funny how this is after the Lord of the Rings, like made afterwards. Not set before, but like made afterwards. Because Lord of the Rings was arguably one of the best kind of sagas of all time, besides Star Wars and Indiana Jones. It's known as one of the best kind of trilogies in movie history, right? So to be after that, to be like the kind of spiritual successor, or successor in general, to a movie of that caliber, you're gonna be kind of in the shadow of that movie, without a doubt. Like, that was an amazing movie, and you're not gonna create something as better or see something as good in the fantasy genre ever. Like, you'll try and look for stuff as good as Lord of the Rings, but you'll never see it. And The Hobbit's no different. It's an awesome movie, but is it as good as Lord of the Rings? No. Because for a lot of people, Lord of the Rings was their entrance into Middle-earth. It was their kind of first introduction into the world of Middle-earth. Like for me, I'm 16, so when I saw The Fellowship of the Ring, I was just a babby, and I didn't understand what was going on. Let's be honest, I didn't understand most of the plot. But like even the scenery by itself, even the music, concerning Hobbits, the music that plays when you're in the Shire, that's nostalgic as fuck for me. So like, you'll never find that kind of emotion in this movie unless you yourself are a small child and can feel the nostalgia. And even if you're not a small child, if this is your first movie related to Middle-earth, then yes, this might be as good as, or if not better than Lord of the Rings. For a lot of people, because they saw Lord of the Rings first, that will be their preferred idea, because that's their entrance, that's their first kind of introduction into the world. And so far, Lord of the Rings has been a bit more kind of epic in terms of battles and in terms of combat. Like, this has its fair share of combat, more so than Unexpected Journey. It has a bit more kind of action sequences and stuff, so you could argue that this is more akin to Lord of the Rings, but it's certainly not as kind of action-packed as Lord of the Rings. And I'm not saying that I want it to be action-packed. My favourite Lord of the Rings movie is Fellowship of the Ring, because it kind of builds up the whole thing, and because it has the Hobbit section. Like, what I'll do is, when I watch Fellowship, I'll skip the prologue and start with the Hobbit kind of Shire part. Not because I hate the prologue, because I want to start with the shy part, because that's the part that I like the best. You know? So I'm not saying that I prefer the action, but I'm just saying a lot of people do, and using that kind of idea, this is more akin to Lord of the Rings, therefore it should be better. And a lot of people do think it is better because there's more action, and I'll certainly say it is more fast paced. Another good point would be the kind of big reveal, it wasn't really a big reveal, but the reveal of who the necromancer is. Now I'm not going to say who the necromancer is because again, no spoilers in this review, but I thought that was handled really well, and it wasn't just like, it's him, boom! It was like kind of, not subtle, but it was much kind of more casual than that in the situation that was at hand, and I think that handled the kind of reveal of who the necromancer is very, very well. And I'm trying to be vague as hell here, but even though you know who it is, after they announce it, it's still like, oh my god, it's him. Do you know what I mean? So if you've seen Lord of the Rings, and I'm assuming that a lot of you have, the majority, I would even go as far as to like 75% plus, you'll recognise this character and you'll be like, oh shit. Because the Necromancer was added by Peter, I believe. I don't think Necromancer was in The Hobbit. And I think that the way he handled that, if it was Peter who chose how to reveal him, was a very good idea. I thought the way they did that was amazing. On the other hand, there was some bad stuff. This is by no means a perfect movie. There are some bad things, or at least things I think are bad, and hopefully you agree. Maybe you won't agree, and again, you can always look in the comments, you can always say in the comments why you don't agree, we'll have a discussion. But this is my review, so it's going to be a lot of my kind of personal opinion. A lot of it is objective, a lot of it is kind of set in stone because that was a bad thing, but then some of it's my opinion and something I don't like personally, do you understand? First thing related to that, which is my opinion, I think. I don't think a lot of people will agree with it, but Stephen Fry is in this movie, and he plays the Master of Lake Town. Now, I'm not going to give you any information on who the Master of Lake Town is, because it is a spoiler, but I mean, the name in itself isn't a spoiler, unless you read the books, and in that case, you know what happens, but the Master of Lake Town is played by Stephen Fry, and I just felt that that was the worst choice. It felt so stupid. Like, for the whole movie I was really immersed. I love Lord of the Rings, I love Middle-earth, I love fantasy, but as soon as I saw Stephen Fry, it kind of broke the fourth wall inadvertently. Like, Stephen Fry played the Master of Lake Town, but he didn't. Stephen Fry played Stephen Fry, pretending to be the Master of Lake Town. Do you understand? He is of such renown, he's so well known outside of acting, that whenever he acts, he's just Stephen Fry. Sort of like Nicolas Cage. Whenever Nicolas Cage plays a character, he isn't that character, he's Nicolas Cage. Now you could say, oh, that could be the same for Ian McKellen, he's well known. Well no, he's known for Gandalf. You know what I mean? Like, he's known for... It's different, I don't know, it's just Stephen Fry. Maybe it's because he played it in such a kind of purposely comedic kind of way, like he was the fat jolly Englishman or something, but I don't know, I just felt that Stephen Fry was a terrible choice for that. Like, it was too, I don't know what, it was a bit naff. It was a bit kind of cheap having him, not necessarily having him as the character, but maybe even the way that he played the character. Like, you'd think that the Master of Lake Town is supposed to be scary in a way, at least foreboding, but Stephen Fry just played this big fat guy who walked around and had greasy hair. It's a bit weird. I didn't like it. I mean, maybe you did, and maybe you can tell me why you liked it, but personally, I felt like Stephen Fry was a weird choice because I've never seen him act in a movie before, and it just broke the fourth wall. But there we go. Another character, I didn't necessarily not like her, but Toriel.
And here, with every victory, this evil will grow.
Toriel is the character that Peter Jackson added. She wasn't in the Hobbit books, but he added her because there was no females in the book, really. So he thought Toriel will bring in a female demographic. And I don't think you need to do that. If a woman's going to like The Hobbit, she's going to like The Hobbit. Making a female character isn't going to change that. You know? That's not going to really make a difference. I don't know why you would think it would. It's a bit weird, but she was an alright character. Right? As a character, I thought she was okay, but I didn't see why she was there. it's hard to explain. She was unnecessary, but she was good while she was there. She just seemed like she was a replacement for Arwen. A lot of people liked Arwen, rightfully so. She was a nice character, she was a good character. She was the kind of romance option for Aragorn. It kind of shown that Aragorn had like emotions and stuff like that. It felt like Arwen, point two. It just felt like she wasn't needed. Like, she was there to create a love triangle between her, Legolas, and either Philly or Killy. The one with the brown hair, the twin with the brown hair, she was his love interest. I mean, even if they got on, it's a bit weird. They're like different animals. Still, I'm not too keen on the idea of elves crossing with dwarfs, or dwarfs, like interracial, not really interracial, but you know what I mean, like inter-special relationships are a bit weird. Like, where'd you stop? Start having sex with orcs, that's a bit strange. I wouldn't have sex with an orc. I don't even think you can get female orcs. Anyway, I was off track, but she just felt like she was there to be part of a love triangle, and we could have done without her. She was unnecessary, is what I'm saying. She was unnecessary, but I understood her merits as a character, and she did kind of go against the grain. She did show the kind of class system between like elves, how she's a silver elf and he's a wood elf, being Legolas, and that was kind of a good way of showing that as well.
Do not give him hope where there is none.
But another character who I fucking hated, besides the Master, was the Master's assistant. Too comical, too Disney-esque. Like, why? Why did you make him so cliche as a villain, as a children's villain? You could have just made him a normal, creepy bastard without having to be like fucking like a Disney Hunchback of Notre Dame type deal. Nonsense. Unexpected Journey seemed to focus on the expedition. It focused on the kind of start, them getting ready for their adventure. Too much, in my opinion. It just focused on the kind of them setting off way too much. And then like they didn't get away till I don't know how far. I think it was like half an hour in. This suffers from the opposite. There is no expedition. There is no kind of start to this movie. There is a scene that's supposed to like tell you what happened when Gandalf met Thorin. And that's supposed to be it, but it seems kind of shoddy. It seems like it was just put there so they could say we have a start. Because without that little kind of prequel to a prequel scene, without that kind of here's what happened scene, it would just be straight into the action, and it would be criticised for that. And I still think it should be criticised for going straight into the action. The first Hobbit movie focused too much on the start. Granted, it was the first film, but still, they spent way too much time about Bilbo meeting the dwarves and getting ready for his adventure. That was way too much there. And this one, there was no time at the start. There wasn't a start, basically. It was just straight into combat. Straight into, not necessarily combat, but straight into action. I think with the third movie, they'll find a happy medium between like getting a good expedition, getting a good start going, and getting the kind of combat going so that you're interested. Do you know what I mean? So I think the third one's going to be third time charm, and I think that it'll mix like the good expedition with the kind of fast-paced action thing that a lot of people want to see. Because a lot of people prefer the action in Lord of the Rings to the kind of storytelling, and a lot of people prefer the storytelling to the action, so it's like 50-50. So to get like a good balance of the two, I think they'll do it next time. I think next time will be the perfect time. I think this movie specifically, there was no start. So that's probably a bad point in my eyes, but maybe you think it's not. But again, my personal opinion right here. One problem that I had personally with the movie is that the Smaug situation went on for too long. Like, Smaug and Benedict Cumberbatch are both amazing people, right? I don't think Smaug's a person, a dragon person, right? They're amazing, right? And seeing the reveal of Smaug, seeing it in action, great. But when it goes on for ages, you're like, alright, we've met Smaug, he's awesome, but what's going to happen next? This is the Shire of this movie. Like, do you know how I said that the other movie had the expedition going for ages? Well, in this movie, the Smaug situation goes on for ages. And I felt like it just went on for hours and hours and hours. Like, the movie's long as hell. And this was like, towards the end-ish, and you just felt like it was going on for a long time. Like, sure, it would switch to different situations. So it switched to like maybe Gandalf, it switched to like maybe Legolas, see what they're doing at that point in time. But it still felt like the Smaug situation went on for too long. And I think they could have shortened that way more. without missing out on a lot of the narrative. They could have shortened it, and they could have made the movie a much shorter, and not necessarily worse. To be honest, they could have ended the movie on this second film. It could have been ended right now, and it could be over. And in some ways, I'm thankful that it's 3 movies, because I want the experience to last as long as possible, and I wanted to I like looking forward to next year to see what happens next. But because they could have ended it now, because they could have easily ended the narrative, they could have had Smaug get killed, that could have been the end. But no, they had to extend it a little bit. I don't know how they're going to make another movie. Like, I'm not going to tell you what happens, but it's weird because they left it at a point where you would assume that it would only take 10 minutes to end. There's not, I don't know how they're going to make it into a 3.5-hour movie next time. I don't know how that's going to work, with it being so close to the end. Because I'm sure you've seen the posters, so you know that you meet Smaug, so that's not a spoiler. That's well known that Smaug is in this movie. But even if he had just met Smaug, there wouldn't be enough material for another movie, so it's going to be interesting to see how he stretches that out, how Peter stretches that out, and how much kind of material of his own is going to be included. Whereas in the next movie, I think it's going to be the majority of material will be his own. So I think the next time it's going to be a lot of kind of necromancer based things. I think it's going to be a lot of necromancer. I think it's just going to be the necromancer. They'll kill Smaug next movie, and I think the necromancer will be the most prevalent item in the movie. He'll become the main bad guy. And if you've seen the movie, you'll know that that would make sense for him to become the main bad guy by the end. And I think that would probably be what's going to happen. I mean, I'm not going to say for certain, I don't know. But I think that would probably be the most logical way of them doing it. Because the Smaug situation can't last for more than half an hour at most, until he's dead. So I think that the necromancer will probably be the main enemy in film 3. But yeah, the Smaug situation just took way too long, and just dragged out. Might as well talk about the 40 FPS kind of film thing, and 3D as well. 40 FPS is a very good idea, especially for something like Lord of the Rings, where there's a lot happening at once. Like the battle scenes, there's loads of people on screen, there's loads of things happening. There's some guy with an axe hitting an orc, there's an orc fucking humping the air, right? So there's lots of stuff happening at once. So for it to be at 40 FPS, if you're a gamer, you'll know that this is good. For it to be at 40 FPS means that it's a lot easier to see what's happening, it's a lot less blurry, and you can see what's happening with a much bigger depth, and it's much easier to see basically. It makes it much easier to see, and it's just a crisper picture. Now, on The Unexpected Journey, when I just started watching the movie, it looked like it was fast forwarding, because when Bilbo was walking, he was going like, you're like, what the fuck is he doing? Is he being fast forward? Like, Bilbo, are you on LSD? But no, it was just like getting used to the 40 FPS, because it is a shock to the system at the start. You do think, like, what the fuck am I watching? It's like one of those old movies that's black and white, where it's like the comedy thing where they fall over, and it's always sped up. It's a bit like that at the start, but the feeling and the kind of effect does wear off, and you get used to it. But the positives stay and the negatives go. So when you see the compact, you'll really know that it's 40 FPS, because like, it's just crisper. I keep saying that again and again, but it's a crisper picture. It's more, like, it's just sharp, and it's just easier to see what's happening. Like beforehand, you would just think, lots of people on screen fighting, but now you think, he's got an axe hitting the guy with the shield. The other guy with the shield is attacking the other guy. You'll see more specific situations, like little battle going on over there, little battle amongst the war, and I think it really helps the experience. The 3D, on the other hand, is fucking shit. It's all the only 3-dimensional thing I saw in that movie were bumblebees. Right? There's a situation in The Hobbit, Desolation of Smaug, when there's a bumblebee that goes past, right? But it doesn't go past once. Oh no, we need to justify 3-dimensional stuff. Let's have him go past 20 fucking times. Bzz, bzz, bzz. Fuck right off. You're not welcome, right? I came here to see hobbits, dwarfs, elves, and humans all halfway. I did not pay to see Buzz's fucking adventure. Buzz's adventure can buzz right off and fuck off over there. Fuck off. Because the bees are just... Why? Why have the bees 3D? Who gives a fuck about 3D bears? 3D bears might be alright, but 3D bees is not alright. 3D bee can be away from the screen, right? No! I don't want that in my movie, right? That's awful. There was none of it kind of used in a cinematic sense, as in, like, in combat. If an orc threw an axe and it went towards the screen, sure, that's a bit gimmicky, sure, that's a bit of a cheap effect, but I'll let it pass. B, just nothing to do with it. Nothing to do with it. No. You either don't have 3D, or you use it in a way that's good. Alright? Either or. The bee was the most 3D thing in that movie. That's saying something. So I'd say don't watch it in 3D, but watch it in only 40 FPS if you can. 40 FPS 2D. I don't know if that's possible. I'm not sure if 3D and 40 FPS go hand in hand, but if possible I'd watch it in 40 FPS 2D, because 3D doesn't even add anything to the experience in my opinion. 3D is still a gimmick, but 40 FPS I think does add something to the movie. It has a kind of... it has an effect on the narrative, it has an effect on the movie, but 3D does not. 3D can work in two ways. It can just not be used, and then you think, why did I even buy that? Or it can be used in such a way that you think you're watching a pantomime. It's a pantomime, or it's nothing. And at this point in time I don't want either, so no. No 3D for me, and if you're smart, no 3D for you either, to be honest.